Bruins Beat is brought to you by Prize Picks and the Game Time app.
And welcome into the Bruins Beat, presented by Prize Picks. Go use that promo code CLNS to get $50 back when you play just $5. And we're presented by Game Time. Go use the promo code CLNS to get $20 off that first purchase. Terms apply. I'm Evan Marinofsky. That's Conor Ryan. Connor, what is up?
Evan, I'm doing well. How you doing?
Doing great. Just got back from Nashville. Caught a Predators game on Saturday night. Caught the Patriots game at Nissan Stadium on Sunday. Very disappointing result, but that Drake May pass with like no time on the clock, very electric. I gotta say, very incredible play to watch live. Stunning, to be honest.
I mean, listen, I'll take the Patriots losing these games, but it's entertaining, and like you're seeing the progress, as opposed to like last year where they lost, felt like they lost games 6-0. Like, I'll take games like that where they're always in the thick of things. You deal with the rookie quarterback going through the growing pains, but if you can throw the ball like that and run the ball especially, I'll take it. There's a glimmer of hope, which I will take at this point, Evan.
I agree. Really cool to see. I must say about Bridgestone Arena, and again, Predators game on Saturday night on Broadway, you think, all right, this place is going to be jumping. They give out rally towels. Kind of dead inside. It just wasn't that great. It was a fun atmosphere. Country music plays in the intermissions, and it's, very country, which is awesome. Good for them, have their own identity. Just the fans weren't that into it. I mean, it was like a library at times, and that Titans game, and I know the two teams stunk, so like whatever. But even that, you go to the bars at like 10 a.m. because the game's at 12, and you think, all right, people are going to be all raring to go. It's like, that was even quieter. You could talk to people at the other end of your section without having to raise your voice. So it just wasn't the greatest of atmospheres at either game. Very fun time. I'd never been in Nashville. I will say, though, the best thing I got out of it, Connor, the best thing.
What's that?
The best thing I got, a cowboy hat. I got a cowboy hat out of it on Friday night. It was $30.
I was going to say, was that an ill-advised Broadway purchase?
Yeah,
or something like that?
it was. It was
Morgan
$30.
Yeah, did Morgan Wallen throw like an ottoman at your head, and that was like his way to pay you back?
You must buy it. Yes, I got a cowboy hat. Because we went into the store and they had it was cowboy boots, and it was like buy one get two free, and so you're like, oh, we could split one pair for the price and all get our own. That would be really stupid though. But then they had these hats and they were $30, and I said, you know what? Get a cowboy hat. So
good for you, Evan.
I did. I got a cowboy hat. So there you go. That's what I've got. I don't know what I probably will never wear this again ever. I can't imagine I would.
You never know. You never know when you might need it. Who knows, Evan? Like it's good to always have that option available. So I won't begrudge you for adding to your assortment. It's like a GTA closet. Like you need like all sorts of things depending on what the situation arises in Liberty City. You never know what you're gonna need strolling the streets of Brighton.
You don't know that. So yeah, maybe get the cowboy hat going for a game or two here or there. I will say though, speaking of cowboy, Bruins cowboyed up recently. Won their last two games on the weekend. But the biggest news as we record this on Monday night, Tyler Johnson. They finally signed Tyler Johnson. 1 year, $775,000. I think we've all kind of been waiting for when this will happen. It finally does. Makes sense. I was not at practice on Monday. I was in the air. But I did read that he was the number 2 center at practice. Yeah. But again, I think, he's like sort of a utility guy. And I wonder, is he the next Danton Heinen? As sort of a guy that's looking to prove himself again and fit anywhere in that top 9.
Yeah, I mean, I think the Bruins are hoping he's the next Danton Heinen in terms of a guy that gives you 17 goals and, 35 plus points on a league minimum deal. And again, you look at what he did last year. He scored 17 goals with the Blackhawks over 67 games. I get that some of those numbers were kind of juiced up a little bit because he was on the top power play unit on a admittedly very, very bad Chicago team. But I think you look at just how much this current Bruins team has to work for offense right now, especially in that middle six. I think bringing in a guy like Tyler Johnson can only help you there. He's a guy, he's not what he was a few years ago with Tampa Bay, but he's still a savvy veteran who has, some skill, can do a lot of little things, can play down the middle, can play on the wing. So whether that's you putting him down the middle on the third line, or I think probably considering just how good, or maybe how encouraging the underlying numbers are for a guy like Matt Patra, I'd rather have Johnson be the guy that you put in on the wing on the third line, see what he can do there, or even the second line. If you're just looking for a guy that maybe can mesh more with a player, and maybe he replaces Brazeau on the second line, and I think Brazeau's playing at a high level, but maybe a guy like Johnson's more suited for the Marchand Coyle kind of grouping there. It just gives you options here, the Bruins. And when you look at the body of work that Johnson has submitted during his time with Tampa and Chicago, and just, again, how hard-pressed it is for the Bruins right now to generate offense, doesn't help bringing a guy like that into the mix and seeing what he can provide, because it gives you probably a better chance you have than what you have right now, especially in that middle six group.
Yeah, I think that's the biggest thing with Tyler Johnson, in that I think one of the big criticisms we had for the Bruins early on and sort of some of their struggles was just no second efforts, no third efforts for sure, lack of compete at times. He's the guy who's going to bring it. I mean, this is a vet. This is a Stanley Cup champ. This is a guy who has a lot of pride, kind of signing this deal as sort of a prove-it type deal. I know he's older. He's well into his 30s, but I still think that energy, that effort is going to be there. And I think he brings that. And I think that he's going to be an interesting piece as to where he fits. I know you mentioned maybe working with guys like Marchand and Coyle. I also don't mind him with Patra in being a sort of veteran presence for him, and sort of a guy that Patra can learn from and look up to. And I know we've said a lot that this is not the same Tyler Johnson that you're getting from like Tampa Bay a couple of years ago, where he tormented the Bruins and he was a stalwart on those teams. But still has the pedigree from winning and all those things. So I like the signing. We said all off season, go get the next Danton Heinen. This seems like he could be that. Definitely going to play center more than Danton Heinen would. Although I was always curious, NHL, like EA Sports NHL for a long time, always had Heinen as a default centerman. And I never understood that. I was like, he doesn't play center really ever. But I think Johnson gives you a lot of utility in that top nine, and I think that's what they need. In terms of things they needed a win over Philly on Saturday, and they really needed a win over Seattle on Sunday. They get both of those. We're not going to talk a lot about that Thursday night game, the game that shall not be mentioned. Oh boy. I
thought we were getting some pretty bad news over that weekend based on, or again, if to your point, if they didn't bounce back with those games against the Flyers and the Kraken, who knows where we'd be on this Monday in terms of what exactly we're breaking down. Because I felt like something had to give based on just how much the team really regressed from that win over Toronto a little bit earlier in the week. So yeah, that Thursday game, bad. Not great.
Not good. I will say, I was fully expecting them. We always used to have that joke with you about how when you were flying, Bruins news would always break. I fully expected that when I was flying on Friday that I would land and like there would be, a million tweets, Jim Montgomery fired by the Bruins. Not quite though. And again, the Bruins beat the Flyers 3-0 on Saturday, beat the Kraken 2-0 at home on Sunday. 2 shutouts. Korpisalo gets Saturday, Swayman gets Sunday. They're meh teams. Philly has struggled, but again, the Bruins lost to them, less than a week before. Seattle also kind of a meh start. Still, though, you take that. And to me, like I look at those 2 wins, that's how you're going to have to beat teams. If your offense is going to struggle a little bit, if you're not going to be the same, and you still need, there's still a lot more guys that have more to give. But if you can play good defense, the game scores for guys like Hampus Lindholm were phenomenal on Sunday. You got good goaltending both nights. Like, to me, that's kind of what you're going to need going forward if you want to keep this up.
Yeah, I mean, a win's a win, obviously, especially when this team just feels like it's been really rudderless for the last couple of weeks. But I think one thing we talked about, Evan, in the last couple of weeks when this team has really been struggling is not just the baseline results, the losing these games, letting leads slip away, being unable to generate offense. We talked about how this team just doesn't have an identity. And it does feel like, they're not a finished product, of course. They're still haven't really put together a 60-minute effort, even with some of these games where they've won. But you're at least seeing, I think, guys buy in. And as you said, even though they still have to work on getting more offense out of this group, may not be pretty, may not be the most riveting brand of hockey, but they're doing the things that protecting the net front, taking care of the puck, which we'll get to that in a minute. But, they're playing to their strengths, I think. This is obviously going to be a team that is going to be anchored by their defense, their zone defense, how layered they are, their goaltending. And I think you're seeing the start of that. And I think you're seeing also guys just buy into, whether it's guys who've been in scoring slumps take steps forward. You have Charlie Coyle with that power play goal on Sunday. Les Lindholm has points in 2 straight games now. Trent Frederick steps up, fights Adam Larson after he rocks Matt Poitras, which feels like that's becoming kind of a regular occurrence of Matt Poitras getting rocked, which is slightly but I think you're seeing, whether it's the identity of the team, guys that you need just a little bit more juice from, step up all across the lineup. Things are at least trending in the right direction. And I mean, you look at Jim Montgomery and his comments on practice on Monday. He was asked about, all right, you've won 2 games in a row now. Do you feel like, you're not really feeling the pressure? Do you feel maybe more validated when you look at the way the team has responded with these wins over Philly and Seattle? And he was like, no, we're not there yet. We're not, I don't feel vindicated or validated, whatever the word is, whatever V word you want to throw out there. They're still, he mentioned they're still not a 60-minute team. There's still stretches of the game where you want to burn the tape, but they're at least trending in the right direction. Now you have to sustain that. They've won 2 in a row, but we saw that overtime win against Toronto where you're like, all right, it feels like they're riding the ship here. They're in the right direction. And then they have 2 ugly games against the Flyers and the Hurricanes. So it's all about building that game. It's not going to be perfect. You're going to have, I'm sure, stretches on Tuesday where the Bruins are going to look like they're hemmed in their own end against a very skilled Toronto team. But it's all about, I think, just having guys buy in all across the depth chart. And as we've noted, like, this team isn't a finished product, but if you stick to that identity of being a defense-first team, a team that can wear guys down, and you play to those strengths, more often than not, you're going to gut out a couple of these wins. And that's right now when things are kind of misfiring all over the depth chart. Got to stick to your strengths and do that just to stay afloat in the standings, at least out of the gate.
Yeah, it's interesting. I always wonder, and the Bruins haven't dealt with this a lot, and I've kind of wondered this over the past couple of weeks of like, is this just a team starting poorly? They need time to gel, and at some point they're gonna break out and be good. And it's like, oh, they overcame this huge hurdle at the start of the year. Their coach was on the hot seat. They got over it. We don't know yet if that's what this is based off those 2 wins. We just don't. But it is encouraging that they got those 2 wins. It's encouraging they got them in the ways that they did, shutouts and good defense and all that stuff. And then they also signed Tyler Johnson. And to me, it almost feels like you sort of hit your low Thursday with that horrible loss to Carolina, which reminds me of the one from 2022 when they lost, I think it was 6-0 at home, which was also a terrible game. And now you're starting to go up a little bit. And I wonder how much this continues. So they play Toronto Tuesday night in Toronto, which will obviously be a big game. Anything else happening Tuesday, Connor? I forget. Tuesday, anything else? Any other monumental thing happening?
The NFL trade deadline, Evan, I believe.
That's right. Tuesday. That's right. Okay, yes. That's what the Bruins game will serve as a nice distraction from the fact the Patriots are not good this year. That's exactly what it's going to do.
Yes.
And then they host Calgary Thursday and Ottawa Saturday. If you can get that win against Toronto, or at least just play really well, but get the win. And then you have Calgary and Ottawa, like that gives you an opportunity to sort of get right and continue on this trend. I want to continue talking about what the Bruins need to do going forward because one player was a little bit in the doghouse on Sunday. A little grocery stick action. But first, quick word from our friends over at Prize Picks.
The leaves have fallen and the temperature is dropping, but you know what that means. Hockey season is finally here. And there's so many ways for you to get in on the action and win up to 100 times your cash with as little as 4 correct picks on Prize Picks. As you and the world's best players take the game to a new level on the ice, gridiron, court, and much more. Prize Picks is the best way to win real money this hockey season. Which players are going off? Which ones aren't? Make your picks in less than 60 seconds and turn your sports opinions into real money all season long on Prize Picks. Sign up today and get $50 instantly when you play $5. You don't even need to win to receive the $50 bonus. It's guaranteed. PrizePicks also offers weekly promotions that can lead to big payouts like Taco Tuesday. Each Tuesday, PrizePicks discounts select player projections up to 25% to provide even more value for your lineups. PrizePicks invented the flex play, which means you can still cash out if your lineup isn't perfect. You can double your money even if one of your picks doesn't hit. PrizePicks now offers Venmo for quick and easy deposits and withdrawals into your account this sports season. There's really no shortage of ways to participate in PrizePicks, especially during hockey season. This week, I'm picking David Pastrnak for more than 0.5 goals and Nikita Kucherov for more than 1 assist. It's really that easy. So download the PrizePicks app today and use code CLNS to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code CLNS on the PrizePicks app to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. PrizePicks, run your game.
So I mentioned the games coming up, Toronto, Calgary, Ottawa, that are going to be big for the Bruins. I think the player who's going to have to be the biggest in especially that Toronto game is David Pastrnak. Pastrnak did not play a shift in the third period against Seattle on Sunday, made a brutal turnover on a power play against Seattle. Montgomery had seen enough, said you're done, and that was it. And Montgomery didn't really go into it much after the game. Pastrnak obviously took responsibility for it on Monday at practice. I like this move because Pastrnak, we've talked about this for a week or so now. Again, leading goal scorer for them. So, obviously makes the money to do exactly that. But the play away from the puck, the play with the puck, turnovers, things like that have been, pretty active over the last couple of weeks. I like this move. Clearly shows that Montgomery, is taking a much different approach with this year's team. We saw it last year a little bit. We saw it with Pastrnak in the playoffs. But again, I think it with Montgomery on the ropes, I like this move.
Yeah, I mean, I think if you're Montgomery, you've got nothing left to lose, right? In terms of at this point, when you just look at the pressure that's put on you, the expectations of this roster, the fact you don't have the contract. Like, again, this is the environment that the Bruins have more or less kind of cooked up when you look at just what they were going into this year with that contract and that uncertainty. Like, you had to expect that if they got off to a slow start, which was perfectly reasonable when you look at how many new pieces were added to this roster. You knew this was going to be a narrative if things were going to start slow out of the gate. So if you're Montgomery, you're putting the pressure on your top, goal scorer and your franchise player to step up. And again, like you look at the turnovers and you could make the case, right, that a lot of very offensively gifted forwards who have the puck a lot are going to make turnovers. You look at over the years, the guys that usually lead the league in turnover or giveaways are usually the McDavids, the McKinnons, even like Crosby, I think is right behind Pastrnak this year. So it kind of does come with the territory. But as you said, I think when you look at Pastrnak and some of the decisions with the puck, especially where I think he's so valuable to this team, especially early on as kind of your main conduit on offense. Like the Bruins have had stretches throughout the years, even when they've gotten off to these really strong starts the last couple of years where you have new guys in place. You're trying to find the chemistry. And David Pastrnak's going off for 18 points in his first 10 games, and it's keeping you afloat early on as you're trying to find your footing. And again, he's got, 11 points in 13 games? Like, he's been solid, but he's got 1 5-on-5 goal. The chemistry hasn't been there with Lindholm. And there's been stretches on the power play where they're misfiring, where a lot of it is, again, Pastrnak making bad decisions with the puck. And again, you roll with the punches at times when you look at a guy that's so creative and impactful in the offensive zone, but you got to tighten things up just a little bit there. So, I think when you look at Montgomery and the situation he's in, the state of the Bruins offense, and the fact you just need more from a guy. This is a guy that's 28 years old, is a veteran leader of this team. I'm all for Montgomery putting the, firing kind of a shot across the bow there if you're him and trying to wake up your guy that you go into this matchup against Toronto on Tuesday, you probably have a pretty pissed off, motivated David Pastrnak, which you hope that results in him having a signature game against Toronto, and not a must-win game, but a game that, again, all of a sudden you win 3 in a row on the road against Toronto. You're feeling pretty good about the direction of where this team is going.
Yeah, and again, last time he did it, it worked in the playoffs last year prior to
Pretty
Game
well.
7 in a big way. I also, like you mentioned, Lindholm, and I do wonder, when does that chemistry click? Like, Lindholm was brought here for a lot of reasons, but chief among them was kind of being the guy for Pastrnak down the middle. You put Zach on the left. On paper, it made the most sense in the world. We talked about it all offseason. It made a lot of sense. Hasn't been there so far. And again, maybe it kind of goes back to what I said earlier of like, good things take time, and this team hasn't been, together for that long. Certain guys, there's a lot of turnover over the last 2 years. Things happen. But I just wonder when Pastrnak gets that duo going, because I think he's going to end up being sort of the driver of that. And I just, that's the other thing that's been missing is sort of Lindholm's production over the last month has dried up almost completely, especially after those first 3 games. He had 5 points in 3 games, and then after that went on a 7-game pointless streak and just has not been what they need at all out of him. So I think that kind of goes hand in hand with Pastrnak, but I also don't think you're going to call out Elias Lindholm just over a month into his, like, a team that he just signed on to for 7 years. You're not going to be like, yeah, it's 2 months. End of November, he'll be the next grocery stick. But for now, it'll be David Pastrnak. And I agree. Like, the turnovers have been, a lot. There've been a good amount of them, and it's carelessness and body language and all that stuff. And I think that's been a huge thing with him.
It's like having a guy in baseball who strikes out like 200 times, but he hits like 48 home runs. It's like Kyle Schwarber, right? Like it kind of comes with the territory, but there's a difference between like a Kyle Schwarber or like an Adam Dunn and like a Willie Mopena who strikes out like 250 times and hits like 16 home runs. Like, you deal with it if the guy's, hits 48 dingers. You deal with the giveaways for Pastrnak if he gives you 48 to 60 goals. But you have to tighten up just a little bit here if you're Pastrnak.
Yeah, and as you said earlier,
sorry for the Willie Mopena slander too. By the way,
no, we're a pro Willie Mopena podcast.
Yeah.
We've
doesn't
always
sound like it
been
for
that
my
way.
part, but I'm very sorry, Willie. I know you're a loyal listener.
We have that kind of relationship with Willie. We can,
of course,
rip on him a little, but he knows we're friends in the end.
He knows, yeah, exactly.
Anyways, I want to get into some more from these games. Some guys that stood out, Montgomery's job security, all that stuff. First, though, quick word from our friends over at Game Time. There's nothing like watching an NBA or NHL game live. The energy in the building, the sounds on the ice or the court, the memories you make with family, friends, and other fans. It's unmatched. And the coolest part is when strangers sitting around you become your best friends. You can make these memories with Game Time. Game Time has a new feature called Game Time Picks that makes getting tickets to see your favorite teams play live even easier. Game Time Picks filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. Curation makes it easier to save more on sports, concerts, comedy, and theater. When I use Game Time, I also love the flash deals, which help me get discounted prices on really good seats. Plus, who doesn't love seat views, which give a panoramic view from your seat in the app before you buy? So, take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code CLNS for $20 off your first purchase. Again, terms apply. Create an account and redeem code CLNS for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? It's game time. Now, back to the show. So on Sunday, Charlie Coyle, I really liked what I saw from him. Great play on, I think it was Brazeau's goal in front, the tip from Zadorov. Coyle gets no credit as he was the third guy to make the pass, so doesn't get credit for it. Then scores a really nice power play goal later in the game. He's someone that was a huge disappointment through the first 10 or so games. I think getting him up with a game like that against Seattle, playing well, playing the way that we know he can. And I'm not saying, he's going to have a goal and, an assist. He's not going to be a point per game guy. We get that. But just making that impact, making those little plays, puck protection, all that stuff hasn't been there so far. To see it there on Sunday, I think is a really encouraging thing.
Yeah, I think it's just night and day when you look at just when he can impact the game, how key he is. And you can make the argument as to what Charlie Coyle's ceiling is with this team. Is he more of a really good third-line center? Is he a fringe second-line center? Whatever it is, when he's on his game, and it kind of goes back to even his first few years when maybe the points weren't there, but You look at just how he impacts shifts and how great he is in the offensive zone. He's obviously developed into a really good two-way centerman since he's been here as well. But when he's engaged in making plays happen, whether it's, again, results in a goal like the game on Sunday against the Kraken, or maybe just the little play that isn't rewarded on the stat sheet but leads to a goal from Brazeau. When he's making plays happen, it's kind of the domino effect. The rest of the forward group, as kind of disjointed as it is, does feel like it falls into place a little bit more. So you really hope that a guy like Coyle can build some of that momentum moving forward, just because he is such a key piece when you have there up front.
He is, and I think that's been a kind of an eyesore with this team.
Yeah.
Through the first month is just like, you need more out of him. They've struggled to sort of find where he fits. He's gone down to the third line at times. And there's so much more there. Like, that's the other frustrating part. Someone else who's been impressive, at least just in terms on the stat sheet over the last couple of games, not just these two, but he scored more often, is Justin Brazeau. Scored twice this weekend, has sort of started to pick up where he left off last year. Good net front guy who can tip pucks in, knock in rebounds, good hands. Like, I think also getting him back to form is another trend, and I think it's another reason why I wonder if this is the Bruins starting to go up, where it's like, all right, everybody was in their worst case scenario for a long time. Now Coyle and Brazeau are finding it. Can Frederick then find it? Can Lindholm? Can Pastrnak? Marchand's been scoring a teeny bit more. I know he had 2 against Carolina, and then he had the empty netter on Saturday. So again, not the greatest to go off of, but even him, like, I wonder if this is Brazeau sort of finding his game and if he can be a guy that can fit in the top 6 somewhere.
Yeah, I mean, you look at just where his strengths of his game are, right? Like, if a guy like Nick Ritchie can almost get 20 goals for what he provides, right? Like, I think like Brazeau has a little bit more skill in that regard. Like, they're both at the net front, but you look at just, I think, how effective Brazeau is, holding on to the puck in tight areas, his nose for the net, screening goalies, all those things. He's not reinventing the wheel. He's not doing anything different. He's not changing his game from maybe the promise that, Bruins fans saw from last year, but he does what he does really well. And I think when you look at this Bruins team, and one of the flaws for this group out of the gate has been the lack of quality grade A looks. If you get a 6'5" winger like Brazeau, who's going to be at the net front, who's going to be, screening goalies, doing the little plays like that, the chances are going to be there. And I think you look at the Bruins have also been hampered quite a bit by a lot of guys shooting way below their shooting percentage. So you expect that to rebound and for the scoring to maybe uptake a little bit, but it sure helps when you have a guy like Brazeau down at the net front making things happen. So if he keeps on doing what he's doing, the chances are going to be there, and more you're going to see more guys cash in, whether that is him, again, much like Coyle, maybe it doesn't lead to a secondary assist, but if he's down to the net front causing chaos, more pucks are going to be flying into the net.
Yeah, and I think that's the thing, is like what he can be is exciting, and we saw that at the end of last year, and we've seen it over the last couple of games. So Montgomery, this is an interesting thing. I mean, again, like, we've talked a lot about him over the last couple of weeks. What are the chances that he lasts through the year? Is he the long-term fit? Really looked like if they didn't win on Saturday and or Sunday that he would be gone. I did see that Elliot Friedman on 32 Thoughts said that Sweeney was not with the Bruins on the road. He was at different games this weekend. So Elliot kind of alluded to maybe Sweeney didn't look at this as like a do or die weekend for his job security, for Montgomery's job security. But even then, I mean, to see sort of the outpour of questioning of, is this guy going to be here much longer? Again, I mentioned it at the start. Like, you have Toronto coming up, you have Calgary, you have Ottawa. Like, that is a great opportunity to get right. Now, on the other end of that, if they lose 2 of 3, or if they lose 3 of 3, or if, they just have, there's just a really, really bad performance in there, I wonder if Montgomery goes back on the hot seat. I think it all kind of comes down to, like, until they get out of this sort of purgatory that they seem to be in, or he gets like an extension, I think we're asking these same questions in a week, right?
Yeah, I mean, again, it's part of not the narrative the Bruins invited, but it's one that you had to expect was going to be the case, right? Like, as much as you hope the Bruins follow what they did the first 2 years under Montgomery and start the year friggin' 14-1 or something like that. That's all well and good. It's not realistic to expect that, especially again when you've got so many guys, whether they're in elevated roles, how many newcomers you have, you would expect for there to be some growing pains. So, yeah, as you said, even if they win these next 3 games against Calgary and Toronto and Ottawa, you need to have that sustained over a couple of weeks before I think you're ready to fully right the ship. And even then, you probably don't feel good if you're, Montgomery or anyone else until there's a contract signed. Again, you could hit another dry spell in the middle of the year or when you're getting ready for the start of the playoffs. Until the contract is there, I feel like it's human nature. You're not going to be able to take a deep breath and reflect and, put aside that anxiety. And he said all the right things, right, of staying grounded in the moment. He discussed it again on Monday that he's not looking in the past and definitely not looking ahead because he says that creates anxiety, but you're also only human, right?
Hard not to look ahead.
Yeah.
We're back.
Yeah. It is, just human nature that it's going to, get you anxious when you just don't have that clarity there. And you've got, your job and your future rests on the guys on the ice and how varied it is in terms of getting consistent results in the game like hockey. So, yeah, I agree. Listen, if they win these next 3 games, they keep on posting shutouts, you feel pretty good of where the team is going and the direction this team is moving forward. But I don't know how realistic that is until a contract's signed or the Bruins reel off 14 straight wins or something like that. I think it is going to be until you have a contract put in place. You're going to kind of be in this tenuous situation. I think if you're Jim Montgomery and the Bruins,
you need Don Sweeney to walk in and say, "Guys, no U2 concert at the Sphere when we go to Vegas. No,
yes,
none of that." And then they'll win a bunch of games in a row. I do think, though, if they continue to play the way they did this weekend, if they build on this, if they're, if they somehow win 8 of their next 12 or something like that, which is not out of the question, wouldn't shock me if they locked up Montgomery to an extension of hey, you got us out of this. Now we're back into playoff position. Here's your extension. Good work with that. I just don't know. It's hard to tell right now. And I was reading even the Athletics power rankings at the end of last week. And it was sort of are the Bruins bad? Is this the year when the roster stuff finally catches up to them with the, lack of drafting high end talent? Is this the year that's finally going to hit them? And it still could be and I know we both went into the year not thinking this was, going to be that year. We both thought highly of this roster. And I still think there's a lot this roster has that's left to give. It would be a major disappointment if this team continues on this route through the next couple months. But I could easily see them turning it around too. So I think that's sort of the tough thing that we and, reporters and fans are sort of looking at them and going, it's hard to tell what they exactly are because they don't have an identity quite yet, but they could be so much more. So interesting times, Connor, that they are in at the moment. But what can the people look forward to from you over at the Globe and Boston.com?
Yeah, you can follow us over the Globe and Boston.com. We'll have you covered every step of the way this season, whether it's recaps, features, breakdowns, all that good stuff. So you can read all of my stuff over there. If you want to follow me on Twitter, X, whatever it's called, you can at Conor Ryan _93.
Go do all that. And when the Bruins get back into playoff position or they're on a hot streak, I'll wear the cowboy hat for an episode. There you go.
There you go.
This
maybe was a turning point in the season, Evan, when you think about it, right? So
the cowboy hat. I did.
Sure.
I bought it Friday night. They won Saturday and Sunday, so maybe it is. Maybe it's the freaking cowboy hat. So if that's the case, then I'll wear it for freaking every episode. I don't care. Anyways, that's Conor Ryan. I'm Evan Marinofsky. Bruins Beat listeners. Have a great rest of your week.